Mom, give me one. Mama, give me one. Please, give me one.
To nije važno.
Non so.
Za chi? Zamislite kako se živilo.
Sorry, ne dolazim još. Ovo da se potroši.
Ja idem nešto.
No, I don't want it.
Ali Bosana. Živjeli. Viva.
Viva. Mića. To su oni nešto mnogo sterilno napravili. To je prije bolje. Vidiš i sad ovdje, sad je se ona pila. Ali ako niđe se ovamo pomakne, onda se s tim vidi.
I've seen a koala before.
A ono te na ovdje može da nije.
Come around here.
Now, do you have your own camera?
Yes.
You can do all of your own, thank you.
Alex, do you hold the leaf there for me?
This one's quite guys. No, I just said they're bigger. They're bigger ones. I feel That's exciting. I'm going to do them tomorrow. Yeah, you guys will do that.
Yes, thank you. And then hold the phone.
Yes, thank you very much. You're right. Lincoln. He was one that was born on the park.
Nemaju oni nijedno mladunče. Ono je mlado. Ona je tamo. Ona je malo, mlado. Ali jede li jede? Ovo dijete ne može da siđe. Jede li
Sad
jede?
nema nikoga, sad.
Kako mladi djevojka ovdje rade.
Teja.
Taj dio. Bravo.
A, pa to slika. Mićo, ti to nisi bio ugasio.
Da, nisam ga
Ne,
Zeleno dole. Zeleno dole na...
da.
Šta je zeleno da?
Kad gleda.
Pa da. Pa ja, ovo.
Ovako.
E sada.
Botanic Garden,
Mount Lofty.
Mount Lofty. Mount Lofty to je...
Mount je planina.
Planina, je.
Loft je kao visina, ali Mount Lofty,
Mount Lofty.
Botanical Garden, botanika bašta.
Ne, sada sam ja niži od tebe, ne.
A tako i treba da bude.
Tako, ne, ti si stariji.
Neka Silda vidi da sam ja veći.
Da si i ti veliki.
Gdje si ti to?
Je. Ne.
Ne, uvijek kažu, a on je veći od Miše, veći od Miše.
Svi se me zovu kako, grdalje.
A ja nosim kasno.
Ne, tako radi, oba dvojica. A Nata je kamerman.
Ma jel ti si?
What they call that place?
Mount Lofty.
Mount Lofty Botanic Garden.
A ti malo se, darling, ispravi, nemoj da budeš niži od mene.
Zato što je ovo nizbog.
Jeli?
A ja ću ovako.
A ja ću ovako,
Ja ti da se nasiliš na mene.
A ja ću ovako, čekaj da se malo ovako. Joj, šta ćemo. Mi već na veliko poziramo. A ovo je Mićo da bi ja izgledala šlang, znaš? Jel ti snimaš? Ja ne vidim. Jeli Mićo, jel ti snimaš? On ne smije da govori, jel?
Da.
Ajde.
What they call that?
Kenguru.
Kako se zove, Mišo? Kenguru Dame.
Not even half.
Uđite ovdje ovi bajkis, jel? Sad ono katira kako si okreni.
$13,000, 14,000 kilometers. That's not bad.
Će ti nama kupiti ice cream, Zlatu Doliđan?
No, you can't. Amsterdam, 16. Nada je 17,000.
Sada je. Gjoko, molim te, Silda hoće da ti govoriš o našoj porodici. Znaš. I bolje da govoriš engleski. Best you talk English. Yeah?
Well, parla italiano.
No.
Our father and mother, my father and mother, came from Orjonikidze, or what is called at that time Vladikavkaz. It was called before revolution Vladikavkaz. After revolution, the name was Orjonikidze. Well, father was a son of a priest in Orjonikidze, so it was my mother, the daughter of the priest. And father's family was very small. It was only two of them, two brothers, and one killed himself when he was 20 years old. My father survived And during the revolution, well, anyway, before revolution, he was going into Kadetski Korpus, the army school, to become an officer. And she was studying to be school, to be teacher. Father's family originated, or as much as me know, from in Astrahan, where they were merchants of
That is on the Caspian Sea, is it?
on the north, yeah, where Volga comes into Caspian Sea. But mother's family come from Zhytomyr, which is west of Kiev, practically near Poland, Zhytomyr. And my grandfather was 13th priest from father to son from that family. More about my father's family I don't know, except that they lived. One brother was merchant in Astrahan, the other was merchant in Ashgabat. That's uncle.
That is Turkmenia, is it?
Yeah, to Turkmenia, in Ashgabat. Well, when my father and mother got married, and he was just leaving the Kadetski Korpus, the school, military academy, and as a young officer, and a group of young officers, they were ordered to go to Baku first, and from Baku, by the ship, they come to Krasnovodsk. My mother didn't want to let him go alone, so she went with that army group.
Is that during the revolution?
During the revolution. And after that, that disembark in Krasnovodsk happened that they went to Ashgabat, where was my uncle, great uncle there. So, but they stayed there for maybe 2 months or so. The only thing I know about that is that practically all life in Ashgabat was in the night, because day was so hot that everybody found some way to sleep, and they slept, and in the night the shops are open and everything's, the life was through the night. Well, from Ashgabat, after about 2 months, they moved to Bukhara. All that army corps moved to Bukhara, because that was railway line from Krasnovodsk to Ashgabat and then to Bukhara. Well, after...
That's a mostly Muslim population there, isn't it?
After that, all that army group, consisting of all group of young officers from the different academies in that area, Caucasus area, they went to Ashgabat, to Astrahan, all the way to Astrahan. And at that time, already was, I think, 1920, where practically was sure that the Reds are going to win, and they didn't have practically any more engagement except to get away. So from there they went to the Crimea, Sevastopol, in Sevastopol. Well, in Sevastopol they've been evacuated with the rest of the General Denikin army, and on the ship where my father and mother were, there was one of the last ships to leave, but before they left, the officer came with the list of officers, he wanted to go back and blow the army depots, ammunition, and that thing. Among the other names was called the name of my father, Kozemjakin. He wanted to answer the call, but my mother just put the hand over his mouth and said, "Shut up." So he did. And nobody asked ever any questions, and he went, and they went to Istanbul. Well, not exactly in Istanbul, but on the European side, Bosphorus, they were in the camp which was organized by English and French. It was a camp, and they went there with intention to go somewhere further on. Well, they have been offered to go to Yugoslavia, which was at that time Serbia, or Kingdom of Serbs and Croats and Slovenian, or to Germany. Well, my father wanted to go to Germany because in the school, army school, he was learning German language. And the mother wanted to go to Serbia because sort of national connection between Russia and Serbia, and in the same time she thought that maybe she could get work there as a teacher because well, she thought at that time that they would understand much more Russian than they really did. Well, happened the woman win, and they went,
always.
and they went to Adriatic Sea and in Kotor.
Where you were born.
By that time it was,
You were on the way.
I was on the way, and I was born there in French hospital in Boka Kotorska in Joshice place, where was that French hospital. After that she got the teaching job in Serbia, and they went to Bajna Bašta, it's a small town in Serbia.
Rastište.
And the first job wasn't Rastište, it was some other place a bit north of Bajna Bašta, but that was for a very short time. I don't remember the name of that place, but
Rogačica, is it?
Rogačica, right.
Rogačica.
Rogačica. And there Nada was born.
Kidneys.
Yeah. Well, after that it was other places like Rastište, Zauvine, where you were born, and
Misho? Where's Misho?
Rastište.
Aco?
Yeah, after Rastište.
Rastište.
Yeah. And after that, we been in Zauvine till I was about 12 years old, or 11 years old.
All that time?
Yeah, been in Rastište.
They spent
In Zauvine.
Oh.
And since I was for the age of going to high school, I was sent to Užice town, and I spent there first year in the school in high school, in gymnasium. But since the children are getting, and that was financially hard to maintain that situation, mother asked for transfer. After a bit of struggle, she got Bijeljina. And in Bijeljina we practically spent all time till the war. And then wartime, wartime happens and we had to leave Bijeljina because of Bosnia and Bijeljina become part of Croatia, and since I was a little bit of young communist, I was on the list to be transported in concentration camp. And when I got that information, my mother told me I have to leave, so I went with Aco's brother, I went to Belgrade. And from Belgrade we went to Bosanska Jagodina, where father was working in that, on the sawmill there. And after about a week, the rest of the family came to Belgrade, and we all found ourselves together in first in Bosanska Jagodina, and then from there, after about a couple of weeks, we went to Zavone, where we spent practically the rest of the war till 19...
And who supported you? Oh, sorry.
We have to support.
Mother was working.
Mother was working, but pay was
Yeah, but that was without the pay, wasn't it?
practically non-existent, because for that money you couldn't buy anything, especially 1942, 1943 winter. It was so hard to get anything that, well, I had to work there. I was working making in a blacksmith shop all things with another man who was professional, blacksmith, fitter and turner. And
villagers, they were supporting the whole family, more or less, with different products.
So we had to, well, we worked, you know, for goods, not for the money, you know, whatever we did for those villagers, we get paid in wheat, in corn, in lard, cheese, food, you know, of all sorts. So that was somehow, anyway, we dug quite a good piece of ground there, and saw some potatoes and some other things that grew over there, including soya. Where mother found the seed beats me, I never know. But we planted some soya, and that was what we were eating, including
soya beans.
Including making soya milk, which I didn't like because it had a very strong taste on beans. And well, in late 1943, when the Italia capitulated, and partisans come close to Zavone in Visegrad, and we were in a bit of danger that might get killed from the Chetniks. We moved and lock, stock and barrel and went to Visegrad when we joined the partisans. And then all of us were able to carry arms, as they say. Some of them a bit hard, but
like Dimitri's, isn't
it? Yeah. Well, we joined the fighting groups, and mother and father and you went along Drina towards Bijeljina, towards the Tera in Istočna Bosna. Well,
Eastern Bosnia.
in that, where you went, I really don't know exactly where you went, but I know only that father disappeared on one of those places. When the rest of, when Mama went and that, they couldn't, they even noticed later on that he is missing, and that was it. Nobody knows what happened. And wartime, well, everybody was on his own, you know, spending the war, whatever was apart, wherever was that army unit going. We went doing our job in the army, and finally, when war finished, found ourselves, I found really there inside myself, happened to come to Sarajevo, and mother and Micho, they've been in Tuzla. And from Tuzla, mother wanted, and anyway, that information Tanju group there, they went to Sarajevo, so she went together with them, and we started organizing family in Sarajevo. And that was practically all the interesting part, if it's any of any interest.
But what about Dimitri is very interested about the coat of arms, which belong to your mother's family.
Yeah, family Kosakovsky, which is name of my mother. It's they had coat of arms, like all, I suppose, in that era, which was from time to time Polish, belonging to Polish or to Lithuania, and then in 19th century that was taken by Tsarist Russia or Poland, and that all was belonging to Russia. And but the family in Zhytomyr, I said, very old family. They were 12 generations priests in Zhytomyr, and they were from some sort of a low nobility, and they had coat of arms, which was a turtle on the shield. On the shield was a turtle. Why turtle and what significance of it I wouldn't have.
So.
Maybe.
And you know what, Richard, you have to buy one turtle, and present them to Silda.
It's my aristocratic
No, that one which is...
But from the father's side, Astrahan side, I know they were merchants selling caviar, fish, skins and leather, you know.
And if you want to know more about it, read the жизнь of Matvei Kozemjakin, because I've read it when I was in Brazil.
Yeah.
And that's, that would be the story of the other side of the family.
Probably yes.
Yeah, well. Otherwise, I said, that place, Vladikavkaz or Gorikize, that's very nice place, but it's in the mountains in Caucasus. It had about 200,000 inhabitants then, and now have only 250,000. So the growth there of population is not very big, because it's in the area which is not very good for developing city. Naturally, the other towns around, Baku, for instance, grew to be very big. Few million people, there. And on Caspian Sea, Sochi, Sukhumi, Novorossiysk, that's where growth was, on the Black Sea.
Was mother's father just an ordinary priest?
No, he was sort of a chief priest in that Orjonikidze in Vladikavkaz. Well, I don't know the proper type, protoyerei or archimandrit or...
No, protoyerei.
And what's that? What would be that in English?
Well, that's a little bit under the bishop.
Like chief of comanches in one territory.
I think that's the next rank under bishop, because the bishop, Vladika, is unmarried.
He must be monk.
But protoyerei, he is a married priest, but he is a little lower than
and high-ranking priest.
High-ranking priest, yes.
But the father was low-ranking priest.
Priest.
He had only one church under his parish, and
Your grandfather.
Mama's father, he was a boss of many churches there. Because that side was very many churches in that Vladikavkaz. I don't know exactly how many, but it was as I plenty of churches.
O što si ti govorio o Kozemjakin da su radili sa kožom.
Yeah, but another story is about Kozemjakin. That's the story I heard from one Ukrainian woman, and she said that in Ukraine it's a sort of a folk story about a man named Kozemjaka. At that time, she said, was Turks invading the Ukraine area, and as they always had at that time, the army had their champions, you know, fighting men, especially who was always fighting duels. And they said that Turkish champion came on his horse and said, who will going to come to fight him from the Ukrainian army? He was ridiculing them and that, and they said to that Kozemjaka, who was known, it's a not very strong looking, but very strong man, to go and fight him. Oh, he said, yeah, no problem. So he went there and said, well, what's your name? He said, Abdullah. And he said, well, let's shake hands before we go to fight. And Abdullah gave his hand and he squeezed his hand that much that it crashed and Abdullah dropped dead from his horse.
Really?
So,
but what about Kozemjak? Working with skins or something?
the name is really connected with skins. It's like in English tanner.
Skin softener.
It's making skins pliable and useful for every commercial, every other purposes. Tannery.
So you don't really know whether you are a descendant of that Kozemjaka hero or of a just humble tanner.
I don't know.
We don't know. I don't know. No.
Anyway, that's
Sorry, not I don't know.
that's the story.
Trebamo sada da pišemo u Rusiju, da nam pošalju.
Oh yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
So many people are doing that now. What is it called? Genealogy or what?
And then you may look, maybe you have some land there in the Ukraine, and maybe you can get back your land.
But anyway, it's...
But one of Mom's sisters, she come to visit her in Yugoslavia. We were here.
And Mama went to Minsk.
Sister from Kiev.
Mama went to Kiev and Minsk because her brother or our uncle lived in Minsk at that time.
Ona što je izgubio oko, ne miš?
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
which
but
one,
that's
but I
the
think
one.
one.
Didn't she have only one brother?
Two
Two
brothers.
brothers.
But one of them lost his right hand.
One lost right
In the
hand in the war, and the other I don't think he was in the army. I think he was draftsman and he was working in probably the same job somewhere in the factory for the war time and doing drawings, drafting. Because he probably worked in the production. I don't know where, but the other three sisters, they were living first in, I think Sochi or Sukhumi, I'm not sure. I think it's Sochi. They've been living, and after revolution, and that they were first in Vladikavkaz. But in about 1930s, they went to Sochi. Whole family moved to Sochi because the grandfather was ordered to shave his beard, and as they say in letter, he wrote anyway, letter inside, they told him to bring himself into cultural looks, cultural, to improve himself.
Civilized, to look civilized.
Civilized, you know, to shave the beard. He didn't want it, he refused that.
You got nice
And he left the church and moved to Sochi, whole family. And from Sochi, I think he was taken later on in concentration camp and disappeared.
What the mother never had any letters or any contact with them after
Not
she
after
left
that, no.
Russia.
Not after that, only after war. After the war,
Yeah.
she got letter from one sister who lived in Kiev. And somehow,
And then with some relative who lived in South France, Nizza.
that was her girlfriend from the school, you know, from the teachers' college. And she went to Nizza in France, and she was sending sometime letters there and pictures of her daughter who was learning ballet.
And some toys for you children. I
Yeah,
remember
but we
something
got one packet from Russia. Grandfather sent about half a dozen books and some toys, and that was in Zawine. We got that from Russia in Zawine. Nikki, huh? Are you interested in all that about fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers?
You're all the relatives.
Yeah.
Well,
No, ne bitti. Ne bitti? Okay.
Adelaide Casino.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And you know what you do now? Switch it off first of all.
Yeah.
And just to make, what I meant, I can do.
Sada ćemo da počnemo da igramo karte, ne?
da.
Ne?
Ja ću sad da kihnem.
Možeš, nazdravlje nas.
That's good.
Mirjana, kihaj.
Zato mi moraš finish, man.
Da.
Now it's finished?
Now, Vicky,
Ako ne možeš da
look
kihne,
there,
možda
look
prvi,
there, Vicky.
ha?
Up there. Vicky, Vicky, have a look.
Da će se vidjeti, on se neće ni vidjeti.
Miki,
Ma vi ste bezobrazni. Ma vi ste bezobrazni.
on je nas naučio.
Ja, one su nas naučili.
Like a baby.
Silda je mene, toga nema.
Ne.
No?
Kaže, ne može.
Njih trojica sjede, vidjet ćeš. Gjoko
program.
Njemova,
Sandar
njegova
mali.
brada i sve njemu to dobro radi.
On tako lep.
Pa da.
Što ima onaj sil za cijeli vik.
A, sa cijeli to je Bernard.
A, to Bernard.
I Bernard damo.